After the two bodies were found in separate rooms on Wednesday, the police stated that it was unclear who died first. The official determination of the cause and manner will not happen until the toxicology results are in. I assume that the pathologist will wait for the toxicology results to help her decide what the cause and matter are. This could take a month, 3 months, or even longer. Based on my experience with the investigation into Mount Gene Hackman's 3 children are speaking out, expressing skepticism about their father's death rather than honoring him. This raises questions about whether the deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa were truly natural, or if there was a well-hidden plot. Betsy, who was not only known as a devoted wife, is at the center of these suspicious circumstances. The public was shocked by the unusual death of Jean Hackman, the legendary Hollywood actor, and his wife Betsy Arakawa when the police discovered their bodies in the luxurious but frigid mansion. One horrifying detail scared everyone. Both of them looked like they had been mummified. Why did Hackman suddenly cut off contact with his children in his final years? Why did Betsy seek to control everything around him? Did his stepmother have any involvement with Hackman's death? Let's find out the answer right away. The scene seemed to be a natural death or an accident at first glance. However, upon closer inspection, numerous mysteries emerged. One of the most striking details was the position of Gene Hackman's body. He was lying near his walking stick on his sunglasses. It appeared as though he had collapsed on the spot. However, the investigators noticed something was amiss. Firstly, there was an unusual angle of fall. If Hackman had actually fallen, his body would have fallen due to inertia. Secondly, there were no signs of struggle or pain, which is unusual for a 95-year-old man. Lastly, if he had been unconscious, there would have been obvious signs of movement. Betsy Arakawa was discovered in her bedroom bed, neatly covered, but the autopsy revealed that she had died just hours before Hackman. This begs the question, why didn't Arakawa call an ambulance if Hackman had died first? Partial embalming forensics confirmed that Hackman's body had undergone a slower than normal decomposition process, as if it had been preserved in some way. Gene Hackman's 3 children, who had rarely seen their father, unexpectedly came to Santa Fe upon hearing of his death. They had little contact with him for years after he remarried Betsy Arakawa, his second wife, who was 32 years. The subsequent investigation revealed that Betsy may have been more than just a faithful wife. The public suspected she could have played a significant role in the enigma surrounding Hackman. It is known that Jean Hackman had 3 children from his first marriage to Phoebe Maltz, Christopher Allen, Elizabeth Jean, and Leslie. After his divorce from Malty in 1986, Hackman married Betsy Arakawa. Jr., on the other hand, didn't just show up to mourn. He also started to question their stepmother Betsy and express suspicions about their father's strange death. Arakawa, a classical violinist from Hawaii, became the stepmother to Hackman's 3 children in 1991. Reports indicate that Hackman severed ties with his children after his second marriage, but that he made an effort to repair their relationship in the years leading up to his death. The children claim that despite Arakawa's outward devotion to her husband, she was actually quite suspicious. In his later years, mystifying Hackman could only be reached through his protective wife Betsy Arakawa. She also prevented him from annoying fans by using a secret hand signal, a unique means of communication that allowed them to send personal messages that no one else could decipher. Hackman had long since retired and lived a reclusive life, so his friends had to communicate with him through Arakawa, who shielded him from the attention of fans and the media. Whenever Hackman needed to leave an awkward social situation or a conversation without offending anyone, he would make a small hand gesture. This not only helped them maintain their privacy, but it also demonstrated their harmonious relationship, where they understood and supported each other without using words. Despite its simplicity, this signal became an integral part of their daily lives, like a secret no one else could uncover. Araka apparently pretended to be a nurse so that the paparazzi wouldn't follow her in and out of the hospital after Hackman was hit by a car while cycling. This led many to wonder how A private investigator who was brought in to look into the couple's problems found that Araka went missing for long periods of time and made mysterious withdrawals from her bank account. Huge sums of money, which Hackman was blissfully unaware of, were actually being laundered by Arakawa, who appeared to be concealing her own. However, when the investigator dug into her background, a shocking revelation surfaced. Not only was she Hackman's second wife, but she was also the stepmother of his children from his first marriage. It's worth noting that ever since Hackman remarried Arakawa, his connection with his children from his first marriage has grown increasingly distant. In fact, Hackman's children hardly saw their father before marrying Arakawa, prior to his 30-year marriage to F. Malti, hailing from the marriage, which lasted from 1956 to 1986 and produced 3 children, Christopher, Elizabeth, and Lessel, Hackman started keeping in touch with his kids after the divorce. But things started to change when Arakawa entered his life. People close to the family say that Arakawa had a huge impact on Hackman's personal life. His kids tried to visit, but he often refused for various reasons. Some of Hackman's friends think that Arakawa wanted to keep him distant from his past, particularly his children from previous relationships. Though there is no clear evidence that Arakawa purposefully severed ties between Hackman and his children, the actor spent very little time with them in his later years. Some sources even went so far as to say that, prior to the tragedy, Hackman's children had no idea about his health problems. According to family sources, Arakawa would often make up reasons to keep Hackman from seeing his biological children and would control his incoming calls. The daughter of the late musician admitted that she had not spoken to her father in months. Hackman had previously spoken about feeling lonely, particularly as his aging made him more reliant on his younger wife. Was there animosity between them before the tragedy? Additionally, a source claimed that Gene Hackman had planned to revise his will before he passed away. But the question remains, did he actually make any changes? And if so, what did they say? A close family friend revealed that Betsy and Hackman had been quietly arguing recently, despite their outward happiness as a couple. It appeared that Arawa not only controlled his public life, but also profoundly interfered with Hackman's most personal habits. Arakawa's role at parties and public events often used mysterious signals, and Hackman and Arawa used his insistence on a healthy diet to justify sneaking muffins or waffles when she wasn't around. These details, according to a friend of Arawa's, suggest that Hackman was emotionally and physically dependent on Arawa, special hand signals to communicate with each other that no one else could understand. A body language expert who reviewed the videos of them came to the conclusion that these signals had a deeper meaning, possibly connected to a pre-planned plan. The private investigator began to monitor Arakawa's bank accounts and unexplained meetings and discovered that she had saved up a significant amount of money to move abroad. Was this a preparation for an escape?
Rumors began to circulate surrounding her after her plan was finished.
The case of Betsy Arakawa's escalated when her husband and wife were discovered dead under mysterious circumstances. Experts speculate that Arakawa's financial secrets may have played a role in her abrupt departure. Were her machinations discovered and she was silenced as a result? Or did she stage the affair to avoid punishment? It is possible that Gene Hackman's discovery of his wife's betrayal led to their tragic end. This is not just a story of a broken family, but also a warning about the price of fame, the trade-off between career and blood, and the secrets hidden under the glitz of Hollywood. No one thought that a man like Hackman could pull off such a transformation, but 3 children revealed a terrifying truth about his true character and their suspicions about their stepmother. For the first time in decades, Hackman's children broke their silence, not to mourn, but to expose the truth about an estranged father, a broken family relationship, and a life behind the spotlight that no one dared to reveal. Jean Hackman's life was a long journey from poverty to the peak of fame, but he left behind something that no monument can erase. 3 children abandoned in silence for decades. When the public saw Hackman on screen, they saw a strong, resilient man. However, his mysterious death opens old wounds and raises questions that are more haunting than the films he starred in. Stories like these go untold, while the people involved are still in the spotlight. Roll a man who faced destiny head on, but behind that halo, he was not a reliable parent his kids could lean on. There were no family dinners, no hugs when a kid was sick, no sincere birthday wishes, just increasing distance, awkward phone calls, letters that never got sent, and a hunger for success. Gene Hackman, the protagonist, was a driven young man who refused to accept defeat. His acting career became a struggle against the cruel industry and his own choices. Whenever opportunities presented themselves, he snatched them all, neglecting his family in the process. Interview after interview took precedence over family dinners, widening the chasm between Hackman and his children. Elizabeth Hackman's shocking statement, "I don't hate my father, but I don't know how to love him either," was the result of decades of silence between the Hackmans. Every child longs for a father figure, and when that doesn't materialize, they learn to cope. By the time Hackman divorced their mother and remarried Betsy Arahakawa, the strained relationship had nearly crumbled. In 1991, Hackman wed his second wife, who was nearly 30 years his junior. This marriage marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, but it also marked the end of his connection with his 3 children from his first marriage. Christopher, the eldest son, vividly recalls the last time he saw his father, sitting across from him at a Santa Monica diner. The two were awkwardly seated, not knowing how to speak to each other. After a long silence, Hackman finally spoke. "Dad, I lost you a long time ago." Christopher did not reply, but there was no reprimand or anger, just the unfortunately, it was already too late. Elizabeth and Leslie came to terms with the fact that their father was no longer involved in their lives. They stopped expecting phone calls or meetings, and Gene Hackman continued his successful career. His 3 children, however, were nothing more than names on paper. As Hackman grew older, he chose to live a reclusive life in Santa Fe with Betsy Arakawa. However, according to those who knew them, it was Betsy who kept him distant from his former family and the Hackman children time and again. Betsy Arakawa and Gene Hackman were discovered dead in their home this morning. There was no explanation or message from their father before he left. The 3 of them stood outside their father's house in Santa Fe when they discovered something that horrified them. They had learned long ago not to cry, but it was clear that Betsy was more than just a wife to Hackman. Calls were dropped and messages were not returned. The 3 children of Gene Hackman stood up in public for the first time in decades, not to defend or excuse their father, but to tell the story that no one had the courage to tell. Christopher admitted their father wasn't perfect, and that there were moments when he seemed non-existent, but he was still their father. Elizabeth added that they weren't here to defend or attack anyone. They were simply saying that there are shadows behind every monument. Finally, Lizzie, the youngest sibling, spoke out about how she felt abandoned by her father. John Hackman's 3 children have finally spoken out about their father's affair with their stepmother, Betsy Arahakawa, who was a constant companion throughout their father's life. They have never demanded justice or denied their father's legacy, but they have chosen to break the silence in order to remind him that no legend is perfect and that there are stories behind the spotlight that no one wants to face. Arakawa was always by G. Hackman's side, but was she truly his loving companion or the one who controlled his life? Their deaths leave many questions unanswered, including the real cause of the tragedy and the secrets of their family relationship that they never made public. They were married for over 30 years, but they also alienated him from them. While they did not directly accuse him, their statements have raised many questions about Betsy's role in Hackman's life and whether she had anything to do with his isolation in his later years. Let us know your thoughts on Gene Hackman's death in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with our next content. Hackman's 3 children, who have been estranged from their father for years, can only watch from the sidelines, wondering if there's anything they can do to alter his fate. The investigation may never reveal the exact answer, but the questions about Betsy Arahakawa's role will forever be a part of the story of G. Hackman, a screen legend and estranged father, and a man who died alone and unknown.